was probably published by then, wasn't it? I don't know, there's an ISBN number.
You want to keep that page?
No, no. And certainly not in front of two cameras.
Okay. Hello everybody. Welcome to the first of our Illuminator series. I'm Jim Laws. I'm here because I'm quite old and know a certain amount of what's going on. The people who really understand are on my right. There's Sue Godden, who was an operator of a very special lighting board from 1956. The board, not when Sue operated, that was much later, in the 70s. David Clarke is the chap who's restored the other star of the show, which is Betty, which is a lovely lighting board over there. Betty was the lighting board that controlled the lighting for Jesus Christ Superstar at the Palace Theatre. Although she was quite old, even at that point. Betty was made in 1956 and was entirely new idea in stage lighting, that you could sit down in front of a board which looks a bit like an organ, but you could set levels precisely and you could recall them with the buttons that you see on the right. And later David and Sue particularly will be explaining how that all worked. Bringing what had been an enormous arrangement of levers and clutches, all which were laid out, and would have been, before Betty, the lighting board would have been from me to the other end of Betty, at least, and levers in great long rows that you pulled and you wound handles, and it needed at least two people, probably three people, for a busy show like Jesus Christ Superstar, which eventually came down to how many operators did you have?
Just one on the on Betty,
yeah.
And then we had an auxiliary board, so two operators for the lighting.
Yeah,
at that time.
Came down to that, and in fact, the plot as we'll see, got organised a bit better during the run of Jesus Christ Superstar, which was one of the first shows to use rock and roll lighting. Sue, how did you get involved in the Palace? How did you?
I was very lucky. I was working on a show at the Duchess Theatre just on follow spots, and that was coming to an end, and the other follow spot operator said they need a board operator on Superstar. Are you interested? And I went, sure. I was at college, so I did Superstar in my off time from college. Of course, I had to skip college in the afternoons to do the matinees, but that's how I did it. So very lucky. Within 6 weeks of the show opening, I was the board operator.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and in fact, I actually was a swing showman, so I operated the 4 follow spots and the 2 boards. But most of my time, I was operating Betty.
Not all at once. You didn't
Not all at once.
No.
No, I was the holiday cover.
Right,
for anybody who wanted to leave. Yeah.
Learning the show in so many dimensions, and the follow spots weren't exactly what we know as today the easy things.
No.
No, they were arc follow spots, and that might well be for another session that we do arc follow spots. But Betty, you had to learn really 2 things. One was the show, how the show clicked, and the other one is how Betty worked.
Yes, of course. I had a pre-made plot. I wasn't involved, in the planning of it. I just came into a ready-made plot.
But I got to ask you really, had you operated the lighting board before?
Only very vaguely. It was a bit of a tall order, really, to go straight into operating on what was the biggest show in town at that time. So I'd only operated just one or 2 nights at Richmond Theatre, helping out the chief electrician there. Yeah.
But I mean, talk about a fairy tale start.
Yeah.
Prodigious. Could it happen now?
I don't
wonder.
think so.
I don't think it could do. I was at Wyndham's Theatre in about the same sort of time, about 1970, and it took me a long time to get the hang of a board like Betty. In fact, I'm not absolutely sure that I was ever totally master of the one at Wyndham's. But there were 3 of us, and we rotated, and we knew what we were good at and what we weren't. Betty's a thing that has to be approached with a certain amount of courage as well as humility to get the best out of her. It says actually what the label at the top says, "My name is Betty. Treat me," can you read that? I can't quite read that out.
I can't read it.
"Treat me gently and I will
behave myself."
Yeah.
Which is very true. If you think that you're controlling there 120 circuits and a number of colour changes, and you're bringing everything down to just a few buttons and a few things you press with your feet. How many other people have ever operated a lighting board using their feet?
With their feet.
And govern the speed with their foot as well.
Yeah.
It's such a clever concept, providing you've got some degree of, I think, a mind that a musician must have as well. I'm not a musician, I can't read music. Can you read music?
No.
No?
No.
But somehow our minds click to understand that. I learned a simpler version of Betty very easily, and I could do anything that particular theatre wanted on that. But Jesus Christ Superstar. Right. Where should we start? Where should we go on to now? Do you want to talk about what the plot needed? And then we'll go and look
Well,
at
I can
Betty?
explain that this was the original plot that I've got here, but and that was obviously revised. There's notes on here that it was revised in the summer of 1972. And I used this, I think, for about 2 or 3 months. And then someone on the full-time staff arrived, a Canadian chap, I think, and he completely reorganised the plot. He completely reused Betty in a different way. And that was the plot that I used for the majority. I was there for a year.
But
so this is...
But you...
I started, yes, I think at the end they must have said we don't need this, and I thought, oh, I'll just take that home in case we have to revert back to this plot if the other one really doesn't work. But, you know, he did organise it in a far better way. The new plot was a lot better to use.
I think the first plot, from what I understand, used the philosophy of the big lighting boards where you set up a queue with lots of lock-ons, and then you operated the queue. Then you thought about the next queue. With Betty, it's possible to plan ahead a little bit, and the new plot, I think, did much more of that. Much more. It's partly a realisation that operators had to up their game as the shows became more elaborate, and it wasn't a thing that many people went through probably 10 or 20 years on the West End, lining up a preset and pressing a button, up went the curtain, and that was it for an act. Unless, amazingly, someone switched off a table lamp, in which case they did something else. But there wasn't a lot of excitement on quite a lot of shows in the West End, a lot of static drawing room comedies. Then along comes Superstar. So, should we have a look then at what Betty can offer us? How do you find, David? You found Betty. You demanded to help us with Betty.
Well, yes. My background is that after returning home from university in 1975 in Nottingham. I returned to the local amateur theatre run by the Co-op, the Arts Theatre, which had a 28-way manual lighting control board at the time, and had done since its opening in the late 40s. I was an electronics engineer and was interested in all things technical. After a year, I noticed a small ad in the back of the stage. Nottingham Playhouse has for sale a Strand Electric System CD lighting control system. Wow, half a mile away, and this will transform our lowly mechanical, manually operated system into the thing of the future in our context. Electronics dimmers were already available, as were in fact memory systems then, but this was available, and so I helped transfer something very like Betty and a room full of electric dimmer controls, magnetic clutches, very large heavy electric motor across town, reinstalled it, and we continued using this system for maybe another 5 or 6 years, by which time the price of modern electronics had come down sufficiently that the powers that be saw fit to eliminate all this dangerous antique electrical equipment and put in something that they could sort of sign off on the insurance on. So I am probably the last person to have been actively involved in the installation of something of this nature, originally dating back now, what, 70 something years.
Yeah. This itself was the second iteration of a legendary board called the Light Console, which Strand Electric previously made before this Betty is part of what is called System CD or clutch dimmer. The light console was called the light console, such as you'd call a car the car if it was the first car. It was like Betty, except that rather than lots of scales, knobs you could set, levels, it had got keys. And those keys operated lights of usually different colours to enable you to blend colours. Enabled you to play colour music extremely easy. Colour music was moving lighting and changing lighting in sympathy with a piece of music. And it was good for that. It was good for musical theatre, where cues had to flow, and it was easy to do colours on it, but it wasn't easy to do spotlighting on a light console. Drury Lane had a light console, and somehow they did My Fair Lady and big shows like that with it. But to bring in preset, dimmer level memory, the memory, you could equate the memory of Betty as being 0.2 of a kilobyte of memory, apparently. But we looked on her facilities back in the day as being exactly what we needed, and we just get our head around what was the best show board in the West End. These were all over the West End in the 1960s. I would say 80% of the West End theatres had these, and they cost about £10,000 then, which was an awful lot of money. It was several people's yearly wage, yearly salary. But it was perceived worth it in the times when there was a boom in theatre, in theatres generally. People were buying lots of theatre tickets. Business was buoyant, and rather than having two men working where they couldn't see the stage and doing something not at all precisely, you had the opportunity with Betty setting up precisely. Shall we move over and see what the facilities are?
Okay. Are we all going?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's all go then.
I'll go behind because I know the least about it. So.
Right.
Shall I go that side?
I'm just aware of.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll come round here.
Yes, you go in the middle. So
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go. Let's pop Betty's bits and pieces up there.
You all got the leads. You got.
Yes,
I'm treading on most.
I'm good. Right.
So, well, describe the various bits. Like what do these give you access to?
Well, these are the circuits that you're selecting. You can select them by hand, as I recall. It's a long time ago. Otherwise, they're set up on pistons, which would select them, and then you set your levels here.
Yeah. What people have got to get round in their heads is that nowadays, if you move a control, generally something happens. With Betty, you can move what you want. You can do resets. You can set these. Nothing happens till you press
those buttons.
Those.
Yes.
So that's where the clever bit is. You've got what's called sustaining. Once your finger's off the button, you can do a reset.
Yeah.
And this plot largely says, okay, we'll just do a reset every time we do a cue. In fact, Betty could do more because of the pistons. So perhaps you could tell us about pistons, which isn't an entirely new
a new concept.
Yes.
Okay.
Not as I remember. I was never involved in plotting the shows. I operated it with the plot that had been done.
Did you have to do resets for pistons?
There are some pistons in there. It didn't. This plot did not use pistons a lot. The second one, as I recall, did.
Yeah. Yes.
And these buttons are really looking at whether you raise or all raise the levels, or whether you dim or dim. Whether all dim would be dimming everything that was up, up on stage, and dimming would just be what you've got selected. So if you changed a level from level 9, down to level 6, dim would take it down to level 6. Do jut in if you remember if you remember anything different.
Okay.
I think that's always going down. Dim's always going down.
Yeah.
Raise is always going up.
Raise is always going up.
And move is the one that takes regard of what's
on here.
What the levels are.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the clever one.
Button.
The main feature that is built into Betty that wasn't used before is this memory system. These buttons here, 14 of them, control 14 groups of circuits via their each selection tab. The button, these main move buttons, raise, move, dim, they cause an action, but they only cause the action to occur if the channels are selected by the tabs, and the channels can be selected by using these pre-recorded memories. So the system works by enabling you to divide up each cue across the switchboard, across the whole range of channels, so that for a given cue you only need to concern yourself with the circuits that are involved. For each cue you do not have to go and reset everything across the 120 channels in this case. Having made a change to the lighting state, either using the raise, dim or move buttons, everything stays as it was, so it gives you an opportunity to change levels if you need to, make a different selection of channels that are going to change state, and again you can activate that with one of those buttons at the end. All of this top half comes directly from the John Compton Organ Company, major British builder of cinema organs throughout the 1920s through to about the 1960s. Their cinema organs, unlike the American Wurlitzers, were all electric consoles. Compton had a number of patents to his name and other people within the company for novel electrical controls and gadgets, which include these tabs, which can be remotely activated. Do we actually have the power on the console? Has anyone turned Betty on?
Are we powered up? Yes.
Oh, okay. Don't think so.
Is this side any better?
That's very quiet.
Oh, here we have speed 6.
Fantastic.
Right. So
Here we go.
right. So if a cue requires a certain group of memories to be moved, 3 and 17, I can press this button here and I will select those channels, and 3 and 17
Whatever level.
will go to whatever levels we've set on here when you move to that. The next cue brings up some lights in another part of the stage. It brings on 3 and 6. Oh, try a different,
There we are.
a different one there.
That's better.
Go to the move button again, and then only those circuits will be brought to their levels here.
Speed.
So
Speed.
we've got the ability to select some of the 120 circuits for each operation. It greatly reduces the amount of time taken to set up for the next cue.
Yeah.
Yes, motor. Everything happens at the dimmer bank, which is down in the basement,
Very noisy.
And very noisy and large.
Usually with just a single motor controlling everything. The motor speed is controlled by the foot pedal in the middle here. Again,
and you can see that
straight
changing.
out of the cinema organ. How fast it's going to happen is going to be indicated at the side there, and simply pressing the button, sit back and wait until the meter here has travelled from one end to the other, and you know then that everything has moved to the levels that you'd decided to move. There is also a master dimmer control. This was added a bit later on in the development, although it probably was there on installation. And this is an overall proportion. It sets an overall, every circuit to a proportion of what's set here. It means that you can do a fade to blackout, for example, where a lighting state remains at the combination that you've designed into it.
And you're doing it by hand.
You could do it by hand like that.
Yeah, if you wanted.
Or, of course, you can use the dim.
Yeah.
But the dim button works differently, because any channel that's at 50% will reach 0 before anything that was at 100%. So you can get slightly strange and different effects using the dim button versus using the master control. Foot pedals pistons are available as well, so that you can be holding something like move or dim or raise, just the same as on here, holding that down with your foot while actively preparing channels that are not currently in use, i.e. those that haven't got the tabs selected, ready for the next cue.
I have to say I tended, I think, always to use these. I didn't need to use those except for the speed. I always use the speed control on my foot.
But if you've got a slow change of state,
yes,
you do sometimes need to sort of just keep it going.
Yeah.
Of course, because you've only got a single motor, everything moves at the same single speed. So certain effects are impossible with Betty. She's not a perfect performer. For instance, if you've got a slow sunset on the back of the stage, and someone says, right, I'll go and light the lights, lighting a candle or gaslight or whatever, you can't suddenly have some lights come on while the slow sunset is continuing.
Yeah, and probably used in Sound of Music, which was the previous show to Superstar.
And so what you have to do in that case is the secondary cue, the lighting the light, has to be set up to run at full speed, and a second operator has to return to do the slow creep down of the channels representing the sunset, while other things are moving more quickly.
Or if you're doing switching on a light, you could actually park. You could park a cue. You could just release and stop your sunset, because generally they're quite slow things. Then you
Just
have to change pistons.
Yeah.
Change pistons do things on the trips and snap on.
The sort of thing you imagine you can do on if you've got two groups and two master controls, have to be thought out very carefully on a system like this, which has some restrictions.
But not done in Superstar. It was all pretty reasonably fast moving. Obviously not, but not throughout the show, of course. But only ever had one operator on this for Superstar.
That's amazing.
Okay.
There's another refinement Betty's got on the move on the others, you can actually say these are actually two touches. There are two pressures, and the first pressure operates anything which is selected on the pistons, and the second operates everything on the preset.
Yeah.
So you can do a two-part fade down, or a two-part crossfade.
So this is your move, all move, dim, all dim,
Yeah.
raise, all raise.
And
Yeah.
how do we ever? There's another wonderful one, which is I'll move what's selected and I'll remain to dim everything else.
Yes.
And so that can be a two-part fade as well.
Yeah.
So you bring in what you want and then start to fade out the others. Has to be at the same speed, but at least you can do two-part. So how do you explain trip and?
Ah, now that I was
blackout
trying
and
to
trip?
remember. I need to look in there and see where that was used. But
So
that was like a cancellation thing, I think.
that's
all
to
set
do
up
with
trip.
blackout.
It's that blackout.
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 Yeah, blackout is, I think, has two pressures. Blackout, run down the dimmer under blackout, press
And
all
then
trip,
all trip, which
and then the relays come off.
come
again.
out. Yeah.
And then you can come up again with a move, having changed pistons.
Yeah. It's
Mm.
we would have to have been very creative
Yeah.
to plot
There
there
could
and know very, very well
There
what
could be
everything
5 or
did.
6 actions
Yeah.
in just doing a blackout and beginning in the second stage.
Yeah.
So things
Yeah.
weren't instant bam, bam, bam.
No.
But you didn't have much time to read a book.
No.
No.
The operation of the blackout system is really quite bizarre. Very logical when you look at the original specification, but the implications in practice make it quite complicated.
Looks great on the great in the office, great on the boardroom, but
Basically, the
operation, not.
blackout operates on any circuit that you've selected. Let's just, for example, select a single circuit. Press the blackout button and the power is disconnected to that dimmer. It stays at the lighting level that was used previously. If you want to be safe, you then need to select that circuit again and make sure it dims to 0, because when you unblack out all the circuits, trips them all out, those that you turned off and hadn't remembered to dim would flash back again. The second pressure on the blackout button will trip back any that were switched off. So you can have a switch on off.
Yeah.
And whatever.
Yeah.
The problem with the blackout is it's completely blind. You're completely blind.
Yeah.
You don't know. You can say, oh, we need that light over there to come back on it. Either move the thing and move, or just select and raise. Oh, it still does come. Oh no, it's still blacked out. And that's, to me, is a limitation of the system,
board, yeah.
because that part of it is blind, and it means you have this strange multi-stage, multiple operations you have to do. Yes, you've got to make the blackout queue, but you've also then got to get the state of the system ready so that you can then unblack out things and use circuits normally afterwards.
It wasn't a simple.
No.
It wasn't
Yeah,
a
we
simple
had-
operation.
yeah, we had exactly that problem in Abelard and Eloise at Wyndham's. It was the famous nude scene with Keith Michelle and Diana Rigg. So the lighting had to be so right, and there was no way
Yeah.
of knowing that what you'd set was going to be 100%. There was no preview, and I remember there was a blackout before it, and a rundown and a reset. And then you had to bring it up slowly, and it had to be just right, just enough to see.
Yeah, that dim.
Yeah,
If I remember,
Yeah.
We
you're right.
always used to get the clutches sticking,
Mm.
and that was always a real pain. And then, as the operator, you're there pressing down on the second one, and I think probably going, I don't know, for an all dim or a blackout on that key, and often didn't work. So then we'd have to call down and get someone to release the
Physically move
clutch,
them.
physically move it. But that was frequently just
Yeah.
pressing down on one, trying to get
Well,
that released.
what that was is again these selector tabs have got two positions.
Yeah.
Press hard down on it, and it reflects
Flex.
the current level on the meter. So you think this has been dimmed out.
Yeah.
Oh, it clearly hasn't. You can see
I
on
can
the stage.
see it. Yeah.
Press down there confirms that it hasn't
Yeah.
moved, and you can call
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
So
So at any time you can go double touch
Yes.
on the pistons and
to
you can
find
see
out the
And see
current,
it there.
because
true level.
because
Yeah.
you can't
Plotting.
tell from what here.
Yeah.
Here.
This does not reflect the true state of the
what's
Yeah.
on
dimmers.
what's on stage? Yeah. Oh, the dimmers. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it was a stunning thing to operate. It was very enjoyable.
Yeah.
But you could come unstuck if you weren't careful with your plot. That's for sure.
Yeah, you really had to be careful.
Yeah.
Yes, the dimmer room was like a behind-the-scenes version of the previous Grandmaster lighting boards where you lock things on. Rather than locking them on and then doing a manual pull with a shaft, you had a motor doing that bit, and you had magnetic clutches doing that bit. And what you've been describing, David, is we used to call it hunting sometimes.
Yes, that's
And
right.
there were shim pads, there were copper pads between electromagnets and the disc that rotated. And if they were wore down, then they didn't demagnetise fast enough. So Strand sold shim pads that you could glue on. It was that primitive to make it. But there were bonuses. You could walk into a dimmer room, and I worked out which relay you could press with a baro, and the whole bank would click in, and the whole thing would come up slowly, and you could release the baro, and you got yourself a level check. You walk on stage, see what circuits.
See all the lights.
Yeah, see all the lights from
Yeah.
the dimmer room. But you weren't meant to know that. It was
That was the
it
cheat.
was a handy dodge.
So,
One thing we haven't mentioned is the fact that these channel memory selectors can be updated live during a show. They're not sort of pre-select by switch panels or anything like that, but there are in the back of the console here some electromechanical memory devices. Essentially, we would call them like computer memory today, but then not quite sure how they were referred. But so you can choose a new group of circuits that you might want to use as a particular operation, and down here, the one time you do have to use a foot pedal, because it's not on the upper level of the console here, is the presetter button.
let me move over.
And we hold that down and select a group button there and release the presetter. Now, if everything's behaving itself today, and it's not, unfortunately, this is still a work in progress, but by going through that sequence, hold the presetter down with a new group of channel selectors and choose one of the memory recall buttons to assign that to, and it is within Betty able to memorize that combination.
These are double touch too.
They are. The
can't
second
quite remember
touch should be throw off any circuits that are no longer
Yeah,
chosen.
we've got double touch
Oh, yeah.
on there.
I've forgotten that. And you've got your
And
cancel.
you've got
cancel
cancel,
bar,
yeah,
yeah.
piston cancel as well.
Yeah. Yeah,
So many different little ways of doing
it's
it.
interesting.
Now, we haven't explained the extreme far end from where we are. There's a series of switches there. They're for colour changes.
I don't.
Did you have
we
them?
we didn't ever use those,
Right.
as I recall. No, never touched
They were
that end.
for remotely changing the colour of spotlights from a house that have got what's called a semaphore action colour change. So colours came in front of, that's where the lens is. They'd come in and maybe another one come out. You could change colours very easily on that bank on the other side. So this was a machine that not only controlled dimmers, but it controlled to an extent colours as well, all under one operator. Very clever piece of work, and that's why they sold actually all over the world, and were only replaced in the West End by the earliest computers. Oh, but one thing we haven't explained is why all these pretty colours. Well, they're a throwback to the light console philosophy, which was much of your lighting will be colour changing, and therefore if you play your cards right, you have a row of battens, a row of floodlights with blue gel, red gel, clear and green. With those you can get any colour you like, and you might want to bring in all greens, and on a light console you had actually got green notes to be able to do that with. So rather than having rows of presets, you've got dedicated green controls. So it was much more for mixing colour. But nevertheless, they kept the idea that many theatres had got banks or battens for mood setting, floodlighting, and that those are on these coloured ones here. Black with front of house, and the yellow ones are labelled flies. So they're the sockets that would be in the flies, ready to plug in the on-stage spotlights. So you've got some means of knowing in your maybe subconscious mind that you did really want a blue circuit to be activated on there. It made selection easy.
Yes.
Maybe the lighting designer would call for all blue, so you could do that, or you'd maybe have an all blue piston. Oh, you've got built-in cue lights too. Yes. And you've got you've got 8 speeds on there. That is 9th speed, speed 9, which is a bit like sound level 11. It's a thing that's not good for the motor, but you could have a very fast guide, very fast speed for emergency use, to do a very fast crossfade, say. Not good for the motor, but sometimes useful. You could also, in some boards, I'm not sure Betty's got it, you had a thing called pulse, which on the slow speed you could set it and it would slowly inch the dimmers down, so you'd hear in the dim room a load of clutches engaging, and then it would move a little bit, then it would release. And they were good for sunsets, because every interval was not enough to give you a flicker or on the scene. Things weren't that volatile, because every light was going through less or more wire resistance, and that generally is a fairly soggy thing that has quite a lot of give and take in it. So you don't get instant changes as you do with electronics. Disco was hard to do on one of these. I had to do disco scenes in various pantomimes, and it was pretty hard on electromechanical, because the fastest speed was typically 3 seconds apart.
I think so, yes.
And the lowest speed would be set to whatever the lowest one on the show was. Might be 30 seconds.
Something,
like,
yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And so anything
Yep.
in between, and the lighting designer could set for the show what speeds were useful to him or her, and providing they put them in the right order, you got eight workable speeds, and that was your lot. I think we've talked through Betty, have we?
Probably,
Yes.
yes. Yes.
We've got,
Right. Are we all going back then?
I think we are taking our
Right.
little things.
I'll take that
Make
with me.
sure we sit down in the right order so we don't
Oh,
Yeah.
look at that.
plait the
There we go.
cables.
Well, I can't really say, is there any questions?
Because you were
Well.
asking them.
not that kind of show. Yeah, exactly. Well, I think we've hopefully covered Betty and shown you what a refreshing change in those days it was to have a board that would at least enable you to set lighting precisely, have a good view. That was probably the best thing. Although Betty was on a perch, wasn't she?
It was on a perch, yes.
So, what was your view of the stage like?
Excellent. Yes. I've turned my head slightly, but yeah, very, very good
I
view
think
of the
we had a
stage.
mirror. There was a mirror on some theatres where you could
Right.
just see round a corner.
No,
Put it on the proscenium head.
it was open at
Yeah,
the back and the
so you could
side,
see.
really. Yeah, so I had a very good view.
What, your stage right?
Yeah, stage right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you'd
it
be
was
always looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
over my shoulder, making
Right.
sure everything was going right. It was.
Well, Betty was at last year's Plaza. What's it called? Classic Gear Live, and this year we hope to have her back again, doing perhaps a little bit more than she did last year, but also making new friends at the show, and we hope to see you there.
yeah, we hope to see you there too.
Yeah.